Hi there, and welcome to this presentation on athletes and money, everything you need to know about building a bankable brand. My name is Danita Harris, and I am the owner and managing partner of Geis Wealth Management. We're a boutique family office located in New York City, where we specialize in the sports and entertainment industry, building tax-free assets, as well as retirement planning and corporate wellness programming. So we deal with not just sports and athletes and entertainment, but we also deal with small businesses, professionals like architects, dentists, etc. But I spend an awful lot of time writing about athletes and money, especially in this time of name, image, and likeness, the NIL rulings that are sending the entire collegiate sports stratosphere into another stratosphere. It's been long overdue, this conversation about how these young men and women with these skill sets, when they're playing in the college level, how they can capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, as opposed to just the universities that are in turn making millions and millions of dollars off of them. So with a huge lawsuits and push towards that independence, we are now seeing states come up with name, image, and likeness laws that are unprecedented, and nobody really knows what's going on. I mean, it's really like just complete murky catfish, muddy waters. And so we're trying to all make sense of it as these rulings come down, because of course we know the people at the top will be protected, their rights. They have lawyers. These young men and women can't afford the lawyers. And so as a result, they're being protected, but the lower people who it directly affects, which would be your actual athlete, we are not quite sure about how that protection is going to look for them, and how it's going to play out in just a gamut of ways. One of the really interesting things is the convergence of COVID and how that's impacting what's going on in the sports arena, especially from Major League Baseball. So Major League Baseball made some decisions prior to COVID to do away with a lot of their minor league teams. And the impact of COVID at the same time of releasing these teams and the creation of this independent league system has left a lot of displacement and basically a cluster, congested area of potential draftings and potential moving in that network for, we project, maybe the next 4 to 5 years before it gets all settled and done. In other sports, you don't have that congestion going on, but you definitely have concern. When I talk to the WNBA, the big fight right now for women is equal pay. Well, in my opinion, as I've told it to a lot of people, female basketball players won't get equal pay because it's all about getting butts in seats. And what I mean about that is there will never be the audience anytime in the foreseeable future that will generate the revenue power that men's sports have. And I think we all know that. So NIL is a great monetization for these young women, because as we know, and I don't think I've talked to one sports fan that's disputed me, that the women have better skill handling, ball handling skills. And so there are very seizable moments for them to find in this new name, image, and likeness arena by utilizing different strategies to help them increase their compensation that just is far behind. We're seeing the discrepancies being talked about nationally and getting media attention for the first time because of the world that we live in, where we're now being able to record and upload without permission or without filtration of any major system or media that is going to quelch that voice from being heard. I do happen to write for the Sports Business Journal, an op-ed column, opinion column, purely opinion. on how I think all of these holdings are affecting and how to navigate them. And for the first time in several articles that I've written for the Sports Daily Journal, the Sports Business Journal, excuse me, my editor emailed me back on one of my subject matter, which happened to be on name, image, and likeness and NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And his response was, oh my gosh, this was so on point. This is a timely conversation because we're all kind of asking questions because we don't understand what's going on. But we do know there is movement, even though it's not completely concrete. It's at least movement in the right direction, which is so many young men and women could benefit from NIL compensation to help their families, to set themselves up for a better transition. Because the truth and the reality is not every collegiate athlete pans out into the major leagues. Some will get injured. Some will never get recruited. Some will get recruited but cut before the season. And then, of course, some will be dropped after they've been recruited and the cutting process has gone on. Some just won't pan out. And so if they're allowed to capitalize on their collegiate years, then it can help them build themselves into more stability as they're transitioning. Because remember, these people are dedicated on another level that most people like you and I don't really understand. Their level of dedication, their tenacity, their focused vision on becoming the best in the world often. When we talk about athletes, we're generally talking about global dominance in their stature of what they're able to accomplish with physical demands on them, mental demands on them. And so this presentation is to help those young men and women see themselves in a different light and navigate themselves to building those transitionary positions and bridges for themselves to help them have a more financial secure. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking straight out about building a bankable brand. And we're going to start with understanding what bankable really means. I mean, it's a great catchy term, building a bankable brand. But what does that really mean? Well, right out of Merriam-Webster, the definition of bankable is acceptance at a bank or currency. So now how do I take my God-given talent of athletics and make money out of it? Well, we see that time and time again as these professional athletes are allowed to make money off of their skill. This could even be a question of how far down the trickle train do we go, because where there is compensation being acquired for the performance of these young men and women is now every venue entitled to have to compensate those young men and women for their talents and services. The other definition I want to bring to your attention is from Investopedia, and this one particularly talks about the infrastructure of bankability. And it states, I'll just read it here for you, bankability refers to the infrastructure of projects. In this usage, the term refers to the viability and specific infrastructure, projects, and the risks involved with them. It is the role of the commercial banks to assess the value and risks of the infrastructure project, its bankability, and therefore provide capital fund. And the reason why I particularly wanted to utilize this as part of my presentation is because of that capital to fund portion. Did you know that on average, an LPGA, ladies professional golf participant on the tour needs an average about $5,000 a month to survive? They need that money, that scholarship money, that grant money to survive. So Althea Gibson was one of the greatest tennis players of this time, of this universe. And she struggled financially because at the time of her prime, where she is accepting accolades and awards from the Queen of England for winning Wimbledon and all these other awards that she won, she was financially destitute. Can you imagine? financially destitute was Althea Gibson. It wasn't until she transitioned into tennis that she started to find some financial relief. And if the story is true, as I've seen the documentaries to tell, then that came at the whim of a friend on the circuit who was a white female, helping her through writing other people in the tennis community to help support her. Because where there was financial support and help for whites in that day, due to segregation in America, there was not so much for blacks. And the most decorated tennis player at that time that dominated the court could not afford to eat. Something to that. And so this capital to fund is that which these children are craving, these collegiate kids are craving, that these schools are making millions on millions of dollars. Because I can tell you something, the Duke coach basketball, men's basketball, that's dominated his field for 40 some years, was not doing it just out of love and compassion for the game, but he also received compensation. And so the great debate is, well, compensation is paid in form of room and board, and that's barely even enough to really help, because it could really impact and change the lives of our young people and the way that they're set up post-collegiate playing. So as we navigate this era now, it is literally like the wild, wild west. Nobody knows. And those are the exact words that my editor used to me in his remarks back to one of my recently posted articles was, this is completely like the wild, wild west. Nobody has any idea of how the organizational structure and setup is going to be. But yet here it is, mid-June, and we're on go for it to roll out in several states across the country by July 1st of 2021. That's just right around the corner. So how do we navigate all of these things? Well, first of all, it's going to increase the opportunities. And that's what you have to be looking for as an athlete. You have to look for, how do I increase myself and increase my opportunities? Well, it's very simple. You have to learn from people that you've hired. And you need to learn to the state of, it's beyond just, I'm the athlete and I'm the show, and so I don't need to know my finances. This is how so many get taken advantage of, one of the ways. But you need to understand what I do as a financial person for you to some basic level, so that when I'm having communication with you, that you understand on some very basic level. I have many of clients who are athletes who just want me to get it over with. They just want to, know that it's in good order. Well, it takes a little bit more than that, and a little bit more of reading the fine print in order to not be taken advantage of. So though you hired the right people to do the job, you are the CEO of your own brand. Therefore, you need to know the jobs from the janitor all the way up to the big chair. And in that, you'll know how to instruct the people who work for you or who are working on your behalf how to do their job for you, and you collaborate with these people to bring about the best outcomes. The other part is, are you learning? From where? Not just because of what someone told you, but what have you read lately? How do you apply that into your everyday walk as an athlete and can integrate that into your day-to-day living? You're very afforded the opportunity to just blank out in your career, but it's to your detriment that you blank out. And what I mean by that is, you should be front and present as much for your career as you are for your own handlings in your career. Because when all of those people are gone, and if you don't know how to write a check, well, in my day, you wrote checks, but if you don't know how to read the balance sheet, of your business or of your own personal checking account, then you're in a very inferior spot than when you should be. Listen, I've had a job before and I didn't have people coming to my office saying, well, Miss Harris, now that you're getting paid today, let us instruct you on how to spend your money wisely. No. They just gave me my paycheck and I had to learn how to budget my money and spend my money wisely to last to the next time I got paid. It wasn't frivolous spending sprees that anyone came to my aid to bail me out. So why should it be any different in yours? And for the record, you want to keep a record. You want content coming in that will serve you well. So what does that content look like? Everything isn't really for everybody. And though we're in the digital age, there's a lot that you could do, but is it right for you? I know I recently spoke to a gentleman who is serving a population of athletes who don't really care to be in front of the camera. Not too many people can Instagram and TikTok all day long, but this guy has developed a program where the athletes who don't feel as comfortable as filming their daily meal program or a workout routine can still capitalize on their name, image, and likeness through other face-to-face ventures like coaching and camps and that sort of thing. So the opportunities are unlimited. This is just a couple, right? But you have the biggest competitive advantage of all. You are your biggest competitive advantage. Man, I can only imagine what Deion Sanders would have done, or A-Rod, or Derek Jeter, or I could name a bunch. But what would they have really done with the opportunities that were before you? And I specifically named Deion Sanders because he had a whole album that was recorded. He didn't just limit himself to one facet. He was multifaceted. So what are you doing to impact and take advantage of your competitive advantage? Who are you? Who do people think you are? Perception is reality for a lot of people. And so who you think you are and who you come across to other people may be two different things. That's going to determine a lot of how much people want to invest with you and work with you. Are you difficult? Are you unmanageable? Are you unreasonable? Are you demanding? Are you easy to work with? Are you agreeable? Are you open to learn? These are all the types of questions that people will consider when they're trying to consider working with you. Who are you behind closed doors may not be who you are. I get it, in front of open doors, because when you're dealing with public and you're dealing with fans and you're dealing with all of these things, then you have to put on a persona at 10. But when you're at home behind your own closed doors with your comfy jammies on, in the bed, on the sofa, watching your favorite movie, you can be at a lower registration on your energy level. So how do you merge the two? How do you capitalize on every opportunity, but yet set healthy boundaries so that you're not so exhausted that you fatigue yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually? Know what you know. So what do you know? Because content is driving results. You want content-driven results. Content is the key in this digital age. So what type of content do you know that can drive those results? And it doesn't have to be digital 100% like I mentioned. It could be in other forms. It could be in gaming. It could be in coaching. It could be in TikToking. It could be in creating a podcast. I've seen all different types of lanes that athletes project their next career or attention to in hopes that they can rise up something for their post-playing years. So what is it that you're interested in? Have you gone to the level of even taking out an internship and exploring those avenues? Or have you become so tunnel vision that you've just focused on one and one thing only? Remember, your career is limited. It is not guaranteed, and it is a privilege, and it is limited. It's very short. It's not going to last forever. And I know what you're going to say. Every athlete I know thinks that they are going to last beyond the glory years. However, the odds are not in your favor. It's just outright understanding of the longevity of the average player. That's not wishing any bad luck on you, but some of you will be hurt in the prime of your career. Some of you will be showed up by others and no longer make the team. There is no guarantee in sports, just like there is no guarantee in any part of our lives. So having a plan of starting to formulate what your other interests are is going to be important for you to be able to derive content from that and create something new for you to transition to. Who do you know? Are you getting out, like I said, in internships? Are you networking? Are you communicating with others and expressing these interests? Are you getting on with the local sports network, or are you just out enjoying the ride and riding the ups and downs? These are all key things that will help you transition into the next place, because it's really more about who you know and who they know as opposed to anything else. Here are some strategy steps I want you to consider. You have to think big. Think bigger than yourself. Think bigger than the biggest thought that you've ever had. Well, how do you do that if you don't know how big to think? You find out by looking at other sources. Look at how big Magic Johnson's empire and Shaquille O'Neal's empire has grown to. And those are just some of the visible ones that you can take note from. LeBron James is right in line. Steph Curry is right in line. And there's a myriad of others who are falling right in line. And I often wonder, why is it that more athletes don't take after guys who have shown more discipline and transition and leverage themselves into positions that allow them to retire in the fashion that they want to retire? It doesn't have to be destitute or determination. It doesn't have to be on the pinnacle or in the poorhouse. It could definitely be an easy medium. I know some professional athletes that have transitioned into the public sector, who are now working for governments in various states. I now know some retired athletes who have rings and championships and are broadcasters for certain companies and networks. I know some who are venture capitalists. That seems to be the easiest one, but is it the best fit for you? Only you'll know. And that comes through hard work of figuring out what's bigger than you and your thoughts and where you want them to lead you. So how do you invest in yourself? How are you going to invest the money that you get? Oftentimes, the saying is true, which is, money doesn't make the man makes the money, is what it should happen. But money often makes the man. Why? Because most people only reverberate how much they don't have or how much they do have with money. What I mean by that is, if you have poverty mentality without money, more than likely you'll have poverty mentality even though you have millions sitting in the bank. It could be the smallest thing of buying cheaply of things that will break and having to rebuy those things a multitude of times instead of spending more money for something that will outlast that cheap item 10 times over. It's almost a liken to a psychological symptom that they've talked about, and I'll use overweight people, that even though they've lost the weight, they still feel fat. They still wear clothes that are oversized for them because they haven't adapted to their new body. Or the phantom. You hear about phantom arms, phantom knees, phantom legs for people who are amputees, and how they may still have a sensation of that being there. And so even in all of that, they need to know how to operate even though you're no longer in that place. So how do you keep the dividends going? When you invest in yourself, other people will show interest to invest in you. And then the earnings from that, you want to reinvest in yourself because you want to continue to show the money and the people that you are worthy of being reinvested and invested into. And then finally, the biggest strategy tip I can give you is unknown. That's right. Knowing what you don't know. Well, how am I supposed to know what I don't know? It's about keeping the right people around, reading the right material, hearing intake. You ever heard somebody say garbage in, garbage out? It's all about what's going on in here and what's going on in here and what's going on in here and how you take those things in. What's going on in your mouth? You know you can't eat undisciplined as an athlete and peak out in performance. It's just the complete opposite, polar opposite of one another. So I'm here to teach you how to magnetize money. How do you build this bankable brand? Well, I think the first thing is knowing your worth, knowing who you are. That comes back to what we mentioned on your competitive advantage. You have to know who you are and you have to know who you're working with. Because if the people that you're surrounding yourself with are only out for what gain they can accomplish off of being connected with you, then those might not be the best people to surround yourself with. Money is a magnetic force. It's energy. It has to stay in motion. So we can't get scared when we get money. And we also can't get sloppy when we get money and just start to throw it off as a whim. Money attracts more money. The saying is birds of a feather flock together. And the reason for that is just like in the natural, people who think alike and do alike and have aligned beliefs generally try to come together. And it's those who are different that sort of repel. But you want an arsenal of magnetizing tricks in your arsenal so that you know how to magnetize the money. Part of those are through the metrics of success. Your key performance indicators are KPIs. How well are they working? How well are you doing on you as a business brand? You're the brand. You're the CEO of you. And if you don't know how things are going, then nobody else will. How well do you get the right people in the right place? Like attracts like, remember? And so are the right people in the right places? Often I hear guys that I've worked with for years talk about this loyalty that comes from being in the hood. And that loyalty is sometimes the destitute of their sinking ship. Sometimes you can't carry everybody to the next level with you. It's just not in their destiny to walk the entire walk. The saying goes, people are here for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Why are the people around you that are around you? If you've watched some of the stories that have been told in short film, TV shows about athletes and how they're spending their money, then you will know firsthand, sometimes these guys have droves of people around just all the time, entourages, and they don't even know half of them. Is that the best usage for your money? Do you think you'll continue to attract money by frivolously throwing it away? No, you won't. You won't attract the right people or the right things around you until you streamline your process and hone in on your KPIs. Are you constantly growing? What's in your knowledge satchel? Do you read books, listen to audio tapes, listen to podcasts? What are you doing to edify yourself? Are you speaking with a sports psychologist? Are you speaking with a psychologist at all to help you manage the process of boundary setting, stress management, and more that you'll be dealing with? And then how do you take the stories of others and overcome or avoid completely the pitfalls? Year after year, it still surprises me that people fall prey to financial manipulation. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of it doesn't fall on the financial manager or advisor. However, having the mentality of, man, that ain't gonna happen to me, just doesn't cut it. You have to take responsibility for you because nobody else will have your back the way you will. You can't entrust any of you to someone 100% in thinking that they're going to have your back, because what time has shown us is people will always work in their best interests. So how else do we expand your net worth? Well, we can expand your net worth a couple of different ways. How else do you magnetize money and avoid the lottery curse? Well, there are so many things that we could get into, so many things that we could fulfill with the way that we navigate and operate in the vein. But ultimately, it comes down to you. What do you want out of this whole deal? Because now your voice has been heard and you have to take responsibility for you. Listen, that's my time. I thank you so much for listening to this on this presentation on athletes and money, how to build a bankable brand. There's so much meat. There's so much to digest and so much to get into. And until next time, have a great one.